What if everything that you know about growth is wrong? In 2021, Byju's was India's largest edtech business, valued at $22 billion. They were chasing goals: 10 million users, 5 acquisitions, 20 new markets, and they hit each one of those goals. But come 2024, October 2024, Baiju Ravindran, the founder of Byju, publicly announced that the valuation of Byju's is now effectively zero. 3 years, $22 billion down the drain. What happened there? What went amiss? And many of you in this audience would be thinking that my business, maybe it's small, maybe it's a traditional business, is very different from Byju's. This is not going to happen to me. I'm here to tell you that you're no different from Byju's. How can I say that? I can say that by asking you one simple question. What are you measuring in your business on a daily, weekly, or a monthly basis? Is it results, sales results, results of different kinds? Goals, perhaps? You're tracking your goals when you met them or not? Team performance, perhaps? I had given them this work, but did they do that work? Or did they produce the results which were required of them? What else? How about tracking capacity? How about asking the question that what new capacity did we build in this month? How was this capacity utilized? Where are the current bottlenecks or constraints in my business? Where do I need to add resources so that next month or next 6 months I do not face a constraint or a challenge in being able to deliver the orders which I have on hand, or being able to provide great customer service? This question or series of questions based on capacity is completely missing from our paradigm of growth and strategy. For decades, we've been told by management science that the activity-based view, doing more, running, sales calls, more activity, faster, more and more and more, is the way to exponentially grow. And I'm saying this view is fundamentally flawed. This is, if I have to give you an analogy, is like sitting in your car, trying to drive at very fast speed while your engine and the brakes and perhaps the underlying road itself does not support that kind of a growth or that kind of a speed. So I'm saying you have to move from an activity-based view of strategy and growth to a view which is based on capacity. And specifically, I'm going to talk to you about capacity loops. Maybe it's a mouthful right now, but it'll become very clear in the next few moments. So let's build on that analogy of the car. Let's say you are a driving enthusiast and you really like to drive fast, and you would love to be able to drive at 300 kilometers per hour. But there's a challenge. What you have currently is a small Hyundai or a Maruti car. Now, can you drive this car at 300 kilometers per hour? Can you? No, right? So the answer is obvious. You need to upgrade your car. And if you want to drive at 300 kilometers per hour, perhaps you'd better get a Ferrari or any of these Formula One cars. Now let's assume that you managed to convince an investor, or somebody's really agreed to invest behind your dream, and you managed to buy this Formula One car or this Ferrari. Now, can you drive this car at 300 kilometers per hour? Possible now? So let's say you take this car out and you try and accelerate it to 300 kilometers per hour. What's going to happen? You don't have the driving skill to be able to drive this car, and you're again likely to crash into somebody else. So this is where your operational capacity of having the car wasn't sufficient for you to be able to drive this car fast. So you need a driving capability which is akin to your selling capacity to either learn to drive yourself or hire a driver of this kind of a car who will be able to drive you around. All right, so now let's say you have the car and you've got the money to be able to hire the driver as well. So you've hired a Formula One driver, you have the car. Now can you drive at 300 kilometers per hour? Yes? No. Where are the roads in the city? You forgot that you're in the city. If you drive at 300 kilometers per hour in the city, no matter how good the driver you are, firstly, you won't be able to, or you'll simply crash into the next car. So the roads represent your market. If you don't have that room or that market to grow, you cannot drive that car. If you don't have that kind of demand being generated, if you haven't built that capacity to generate demand, your sales and operations are not sufficient. Now you have the car, you have the driver, you have the road. Now can you drive the car? Perhaps you forgot. You forgot. Who gave you the money to get that car? How is your business going to support paying off the installments for that car, the expensive car that you bought, the expensive driver that you hired, the expensive Formula One circuit which you signed up to be able to get those empty roads? So unless you get sponsorships, unless you build a business model around it where people pay you for driving that car, it's not really going to work. So this is what we call profit-making capacity. What is the capacity of your business to generate profits? So I'm saying, have you ever thought about capacity other than operational capacity? We talked about selling capacity, demand generation capacity, and profit-making capacity. In our traditional view, in the management view of strategy view that we've had, these don't occur to us as capacities. These occur to us as activities to be done or strategies to be built on. And I'm saying business is no different than this. What we are told to do is more sales, more calls, more activity. They don't create exponential growth. They just burn you out. The problem is that when we visualize growth typically in this hockey stick, right? Exponential growth, we typically see this is how my results graph should look. And if I look at nature, and nature is where everything grows, even the non-living grows, even the mountains grow. And nature is all about growth. And that growth happens very, very naturally. So if I look at a tree, it also appears that the tree is growing vertically, perhaps upwards and downwards, in the direction of the sun and in the direction of the nutrients, right? It's a linear path as well. Pretty similar to the hockey graph that we just saw. But if you cut a cross-section of the tree, what you will find there is spirals or circles. Layer by layer, the tree doesn't grow vertically and down. The tree grows in layers of circles, and each layer reinforces the strength of the existing part of the tree. So linear growth, I'm asserting, is an illusion. Real growth, natural growth, is spiral in form in nature. Just as a tree's ring is a perfect demonstration of how growth happens in spirals, we should be able to find a similar kind of a loop or an analogy in our business. And this is not just poetry. There's not a poetic way of expressing this. This gentleman, Mr. Mandelbrot, very beautifully demonstrated it to us with his work on chaos theory, that the true fundamental nature of, element of growth in nature is what you call a fractal. Tiny self-repeating units that when compounded create complexity and scale. And here's the real paradigm shift I'm talking about. The capacity loop that you build in your business is not an activity or a checklist. It is a fractal. It's a physical, spiral-shaped, complete unit that represents your whole business in miniature. Let's make this more evocative for you. So a tree starts out as this tiny small twig, and then grows bigger, replicates itself, the same fractal replicates, and more, until it becomes this large tree. What was the core? Was this tiny small fractal, which replicated, and became this large tree. And this is an illustration. But if you look at an actual tree, where it starts from, so this branch, this tiny branch, represents the whole tree. This is a fractal or a repetitive unit of the whole tree, which repeats, and creates this massive tree that you see in front of yourself. Just as this tree's fractal is not abstract, it's not a concept, it's a real twig, it's a real branch in front of you. I'm saying that the capacity loop in a business is the smallest complete physical unit that you can grow and replicate. It is not abstract, it's not a plan, it's a system you can see, measure, and replicate all over. So if you have to learn from the tree example, a true growth fractal in business is spiral. It's not linear. It occurs in circles. It's physical. It's not theoretical. You should be able to touch, feel, see, measure, deliver, sell, attract, and profit from that fractal. It's whole and complete. Each loop is a miniature version of your entire business. Too cryptic? This, ladies and gentlemen, is what I'm talking about, is the fundamental unit for growing any business, the growth fractal. This has 4 interlocking parts to itself. Build operations capacity, build selling capacity, create demand generation capacity, and create throughput or profit or cash flow capacity. And it's an iterative loop which keeps feeding into each other, feeding into each other, and feeding into each other. And once you have this fractal ready, once all elements of these capacities have been built, thought through, put together, then just like the tree, you can grow and scale your business to any level of complexity and scale. When you repeat and reinforce this loop, you don't just grow, you scale, you adapt, you become resilient, just like the most robust systems in nature. And each repetition puts you into the next loop in the orbit. As you complete one loop, your capabilities get built, which allows you the momentum and the speed to take your business to the next level in the orbit, and the next and the next. It's an infinite space and an infinite space for you to grow. So let's make this a little more real. Let's take an example of something which you're all familiar with, a business which you're all familiar with. Indigo Airlines. Indigo Airlines is India's largest airline, which has more than 60% market share, and it is one of the world's fastest growing airlines. But do you know that Indigo Airlines got to this space of being India's largest airline in a matter of just 6 years? They launched in 2006, and by December 2012, they were the largest airline in India, upsetting the apple cart of the full-service airlines available in India from Air India and Jet Airways at that point of time, who had been operating, at least some of them operating from decades. What did Indigo Airlines do? I'm asserting that Indigo Airlines built a growth fractal, a spiral. How did they do that? They first unlocked their operations capacity. They took a very strong decision. They said, we will have only one type of aircraft, which is the Airbus A320. By focusing on just one kind of aircraft, they were able to build technical skills and expertise to turn around that airplane within 10 minutes of landing, because everything about that airplane was known to them. And they also completely avoided the operational uncertainty of repairs and maintenance, because these aircrafts, because of the level of expertise which they had and the quantum of spare parts they could store, for there was only one kind of aircraft, because of that simplicity, the capacity level, their ability to maintain the high running rate of the aircraft was way, way, way better than the industry. That's what they built in their operations. In sales, in their selling capacity. Now, selling capacity for them was a function of the routes that they cover, the number of routes that they cover. They didn't indiscriminately add routes. They were very, very focused on which routes to add, where their capacity utilization of those planes would be the highest. And they didn't immediately jump and order 500 aircrafts. They've added those routes step by step, step by step, step by step. And their operational strength of being able to turn around the aircraft in 10 minutes gave them the biggest advantage for generating demand, because they could position themselves as on time every time. And at that point of time, airlines in India were notorious for not being on time. Delays were expected everywhere. So what happened? Because of that high capacity utilization of the aircrafts, they were able to still be a low-cost carrier and promise on-time availability, on-time landing, which led the customers to prefer Indigo Airlines over all other airlines, because the price being the same, on time was a big, big factor, a huge unmet need of that market. And Indigo just didn't stop there. They realized that profit-making capacity is critical. Now, they were already making better and higher profits than the market, because their capacity utilization of that aircraft was very, very high versus the competition. But they went a couple of steps further. They broke down everything. So other than the flight ticket, you had to start paying as add-ons for your seat, for your food, for your fast forward, for every other thing that you could think of. And that's the profit-making capacity model, the add-on model, which they pioneered there. It was already there in international airlines, in some of them, but in India, this was one of the first few airlines which did that. So when they did all of these 4 steps together, the entire loop started working for them. And in a very short span of 6 years, they went from a new airline, a newbie airline, to being the largest airline in India and one of the fastest growing airlines in the world. So that's what's possible when you build a spiral growth fractal. So for your business, the focus has to be on, first of all, understanding capacity. What is my capacity? And how do I unlock it? What are my bottlenecks? And once I have solved the bottleneck in one area, or the constraint in one area, where is it going to shift next? And that's what the spiral loop helps you do. And why capacities overall matter. Because if you just focus on activities, I'm going to do more marketing, I'm going to do more sales, the experience of your user is going to be one where they're not getting great customer service. They're not getting the service or the product that they signed up for. This leads to user churn. People come and buy from you and then they don't repeat. And they find another vendor and find another vendor. Secondly, building capacities builds defensibility. Your competition can very easily copy your activities. But can they copy the deep capacity that you have built? Like US now wants to catch up with China. China has spent 40 years building capacity for high quality manufacturing. Can US or is the rest of the world overnight or even in a span of the next 5 years can even hope to compete with China with the level of capacity which China has built? It's not possible. That compounded spiral has taken years to put together. And the last thing which the spiral does for you, it forces or naturally aligns your engineering, your HR, your operations, and your sales to collaborate to build capacity, to scale capacity. They no longer can just focus on their silos that I'm in operations, I'll only take care of operations. No, capacity increase happens as a team. And the spiral view makes that happen naturally and automatically. So ask yourself these couple of questions for your business. If you apply this loop to yourself, and this is the capacity, the spiral loop that we're talking about, what is my capacity in each part of this spiral? How do I measure it? What is my selling capacity? What is my demand generation capacity? What is my profit making capacity? You may not have answers, but when you start thinking about this question, you will start getting insights into things that you've never measured earlier, which you have never looked at earlier. Looking at where is my current bottleneck? Is it in operations? Is it in sales? Is it in demand generation? And that's obviously where you need to focus your resources on. Where will this bottleneck shift next once I fix this? Just like when a flyover is built on the road, you will unlock or de-bottleneck that road. Traffic jam will stop there when the flyover has been built. But where will this traffic jam happen next? On the next part of the road somewhere. So your spiral gives you that ability to predict where next is my bottleneck likely to happen. Unchoke this particular capacity. So my message to you is that growth is not a race with a finish line. It's an infinite game where the goal is to keep playing. Byju's sprinted and burnt out. Indigo spiraled and thrived. Today, I invite you to join this fractal revolution. Build capacities, not goals. Build momentum. Don't just spin wheels. Go out, build fractals, focus on them, grow fearlessly, one spiral at a time. Thank you.